Alright, g'day guys, Matt Preston Built Cruisers. You join me back in the office for another Ford video. Now, if you're wondering why I'm doing them so much, I generally find it quite interesting, and like you guys should know as well, this sort of car and style is sort of going to break the full drive scene and especially the commercial scene. So, what do I mean by that? Let me show you. Okay guys, so Ford have just released the actual official pricing for the new Ranger Super Duty, which is very exciting because at this stage we didn't really know what was going on, but now we have an actual price point to go off. So I've got the website just behind me and we've got all the stats. So let's go through it, figure out what's going on. And yeah, let's just say the prices are, they're not ridiculously high, but they're also higher than some people might expect. Okay guys, so I've just got you on the sort of screen up here and I've got the little cam on the side here. Now this is sort of the official Ford website on here. Now this is for my sort of postcode. Now wherever you go the prices will change, but this is going to be very, very sort of close, accurate sort of guess. So as you can see here, Ford Ranger 2026 sort of estimated drive-away prices. And we go down here, obviously these are sort of the main lineup. So we've got the single cab, the super cab and the double cab. Now obviously most people will for the double cab if you've got a family, but a lot of the big commercial sites, mines and whatever, they're going to want to go for these sort of single super cab, more tray, more GVM, more storage. You guys know what it's like. Now as you can see here, in terms of cheap, we're at 97.9k, which is obviously a lot for a cheap ute, and then obviously over here we've got 103. Now let's obviously dive in and see what we can look at. So yeah, if we go to single cab here and we look at the very single, so you can see here we've got, these are the official colors they've released. So Arctic white, command grey, aluminium, and we've got the tan, and we've also got the shadow black. Now these are all the colors, 750 each, pretty not too crazy price tag. Granted is a single cab, and then the interior, there's basically no options at all. It's just what is there, which is the Elevate embossed fabric, and then the trays. Now these Fords, they're selling them trayless, like cab chassis, I think it's called. So that basically means that when you buy them, they won't actually come with anything. So they're really sort of not replicating, but the 79s do the same. You sort of buy it and you can literally just buy the chassis with a cab on it, and it's not necessarily legal. You kind of want to get a tray on it as soon as possible, so you've got your proper mounting light, tail lights and reverse sensors and whatever you want to do on there. So obviously over here we can see the options. Now these are the Ford ones. Now Governor steel tray, 7.1k. Now granted the dual cabs are cheaper because obviously there's less body, there's more body but there's less room for a tray, so they're using less materials to make them. And then here you can see matte black steel, body colored rock sliders, and these are real rock sliders. These aren't sort of plastic rubbish, which is really good. And then obviously down here, dual battery system, which is pretty cool, so you can get that straight away from factory. Snorkel removal, which is funny, not snorkel add-on. So obviously this doesn't normally come, it always comes with the snorkel, and this is to take it off, which is quite funny. Normally it's the other way around with this sort of stuff. And then obviously wheel center cab pack, and it looks like they're just, so it's a bit more a bit more mine spec, bit more probably like a higher spec with that in terms of safety and regulations. They might want you to have that on site instead of just the factory sort of lug nuts comes with. So you can see I've just added all these options here, and we're at over 100 grand, which is crazy how expensive that gets. But I guess what is important to know is that this is the cheap one. So already we're at 100 grand, and that's sort of like, the cheap option, which is crazy. But yeah, if we jump back and we'll have a look together at sort of their flagship, this would be, they might sell more of these because there's going to be more like the family option. So you can see it looks like a Ranger, obviously wider, actual bash plates, bigger flares. It is better overall, bigger lift, and you can see here these trade prices are quite a lot cheaper. Rock sliders are the same, even though technically they're longer. Snorkel removal, no cost option. So yeah, we don't really know if that's going to cost money or not, but at the moment it just says that. And then wheel center cap pack, 150 bucks, not too bad. So yeah, you can see how the price will add up if you start changing things. But I think most people will be buying these and putting their own canopies and that sort of stuff on afterwards. Okay guys, so I'm just on the main website here. If you haven't seen any of this before, I've done a few videos on it, but you can see here a little promo video of it off-road and, you know, in the farm and all that sort of life, which is what it's marketed for. It's more meant to be a little bit more agricultural, but obviously unlike the 79 series, you're getting the extra GVM, you're getting, you know, the better fuel range, the better interior, the comfort, you know, all these extra things. And yes, the 79 has just brought out the auto, but this is auto only, 10 speed, still not sure about that in the long run. And you know, onboard weight scales, like this is doing some really cool stuff that the 79 obviously can't really compete with unless you put heaps of money into it. And then yeah, you can see here, you guys have already seen these, but in this example, off-road weapon, awesome, and then obviously these two more work-related, which is what the car's been built for. And remember, this car only exists because companies sort of requested it, and they interviewed lots of different companies. Why do you want the ultimate sort of car? And I think this emergency response one here is a great example of that. And then obviously, you know these stats, we've been over these before, but this is why it's exciting, and this is what makes it quite competitive and different, because out of the box you get all this, which is really cool. Now you can see here the canopies. Now I reckon a lot of people end up not doing the canopy that comes from Ford, because why would you, when you can go to like Norworld, you know, Mitz Alloy, all these other big well-known brands, and get really properly well-made canopies that will last longer, basically. So I think a lot of people will just end up buying these in bulk with the chassis cab, and then they're going to do the train canopy themselves, because I think it's going to be a lot cheaper. Obviously for time and speed and everything, some people might just choose to go with what they've got here at the box, but I think on paper it makes sense in the long run to do your own canopy. And obviously, like we already said before, it's got a wider track width, higher wading depth, and better ground clearance, as we know, because it's coming with those big 33s. It's got the wider flares, wider offset. It's just a bigger sort of car, which is really nice. And yeah, obviously a lot of people will use these as tradie trucks, and I feel like, you know, these will be very popular when they get released next year. I think Toyota need to definitely do something about it to keep up with what these guys are doing here. Alright guys, now we've been briefly over it before, but what I do really think is cool with these sort of Fords is that you can see right here, integrated mount. You can sort of see just here around the mast, it's been literally 4 bolts into the dash. Now I think that's quite cool that they've thought about that. And you know, if you're a ranger or whatever, or you know, you need your fire maps on the board there, or anything on that big screen there, even if you're like a cop car, you've already got the mount right there, which I think is really cool. And you know, maybe film your video, GoPro mount, phone mount, drink bottle mount, anything could be 3D printed onto there, which I think is quite a cool thing. I haven't really seen that before, like a full-on dedicated spot to put 4 massive bolts into the dash, which is kind of cool. And then obviously onboard scales that we mentioned before, that is very cool. Now I know quite a few American trucks have this, but to put it sort of in just a Ranger as standard is quite exciting. And obviously it's going to be great because you can improve your GVM, you can stay within the legal limits and perform really well, which I think is really cool. It's not like a crazy new feature, but to put it in a mass-produced sort of Super Duty Ranger is going to be quite cool. And then yeah, the interior, I think it's nice. My taste in interior is probably a bit weird because all the cars around are from like the 80s, but I think that's really nice. The gear lever looks a bit funny and small to me, to be honest. But then obviously the big sort of Tesla-like screen, can't go wrong. I think that's the way to go. Now some other key features, just in case we haven't missed them. Obviously the engine, you can see sort of the specs here. Max power 154 kilowatts at 3,250 RPM, and the max torque 600 Newton meters. Now that's quite a lot. It's quite impressive. Obviously, you know, it's no 200 series out of the box. Granted, it doesn't have 2 turbos, but in the long run, will the motor last? I think that's more important. And being a 3-litre V6 turbo diesel, this engine's already been sort of proven very well in sort of the current ranges. So I think this will do all right. But some people have argued and complained that this new sort of Super Duty obviously has such higher specs in terms of towing and GVM that this engine will be working a bit harder, which I sort of do understand that as well. Only time will tell with that sort of argument there. And obviously, like we said before, upgraded axles, thicker drive shafts. This is how we're doing all the GVM. 130 litre long range fuel tank. So obviously, as we know, most dual cabs come with a 70-75 litre. And that's it. You know, your Hiluxes, you know, your D-Maxes, all that sort of stuff. So to have this from factory is really handy. And then, like we said before, snorkel, front and rear locking diffs, very important. Not many cars are sort of applying that straight away from factory. And then, yeah, everything else here we already know. So very exciting stuff. and I'm very looking forward to see what it would be like. Okay guys, now one more thing to mention. Now this should be kind of obvious as to why this car's been made, but as we sort of discussed before briefly, the whole reason this car exists is purely just for sort of big commercial companies, you know, mines, all them sort of places that need something out of the box that's ready to go and can perform and do this big GVM. And obviously, as we can see here, it can do all of it. Now, I'm very excited for this to come out. Now, what's important to remember is that when, like mine companies, when they're buying, for example, 79s in bulk, obviously, as we know from factory, you're not going to get, you know, the big GVM upgrades, the long range fuel tanks, all these extra little things, whereas this out the box comes with everything. So in terms of money and time, especially money, because companies would buy a 79, pay 20 grand, get it engineered, GVM upgrade, and then apparently most of the time they actually take the GVM off and sell it off like that. So they're paying money to install it, approved, engineered, and then take it off as well, obviously a few years later. Whereas this, buy it, you're ready to go, use it, sold. So I do think that's really cool and really handy. And I really do think there is a good hope here for the Ford. Now, I've actually secretly loved Ford my whole life. I love Ford Rangers, almost bought one a few years back. And it'll be cool to see people do full drive builds with these, because obviously you just got all those perks out the box, all the American truck perks, maybe quite a bit less engine power and torque, obviously, like unlike the big American trucks, but you're a lot more small and nimble, get through those tight tracks that the long wheelbase American trucks they're not going to love it. They're not going to like that at all. So very, very cool. Some other online forums have said they've found these prices up for about 82k at the cheapest. Now you can see here with simple specs on the cheapest one here, we're at 97k. So I'm not sure where they got those numbers from. Maybe their postcode was really different to me, but you can expect to be about 100 grand, which obviously I wouldn't quite say is cheap. And you could argue, Matt, you could just get a 79, and you're not wrong. And I almost would choose a 79 instead. So up to you guys what you think. These are the sort of prices that we're seeing. But yeah, if you guys find this video interesting, feel free to let me know down below. And yeah, if you agree with any of these sort of prices, if you think they're way too much, let me know. I think they're probably up there a bit too much, but they are going to get bought in bulk and they are ready to go from factory, which is really handy. So that's it from me. Like and subscribe if you want to see more. And I'll catch you guys next time on Built Cruisers.